Hey guys, Jack here. Thanks for watching The Great Gallivanting, and welcome to another Wayfarer Expedition Extra.
Welcome to Pamplona, Spain, capital of the autonomous community of Navarre. The city is located on the north of Spain, about an hour from San Sebastian. Its rich Roman, Basque, and Spanish history makes it the perfect city to go exploring on your Spanish vacation. It's also home to the famed Fiesta de San Fermín and the running of the bulls. While bull runs happen all across the country, Pamplonas are the most famous. The city, its fiesta, and the encierros were skyrocketed to popularity by Ernest Hemingway when he published his book The Sun Also Rises. But the city is so much more than a party scene, so I set out to explore its history.
So just behind me and down the hill there are the livestock pens. Now those pens these days are not used for very much, but they are still used for livestock shows, and most importantly to people like me during the Fiesta de San Fermín. That is where the bulls are moved to before they take place in the encierro or the bullfights, because in the pens you only have the 6 bulls for the bullfight that night. It can't hold everyone, and this is the case in every Plaza de Toros. They have a version of those pens right down there. Some of the ones like Madrid, they have them inside the plaza. Other ones like here, they've got them down there. So what they do is they put the bulls from all the different ranches come in days at a time down there, and then every night they move them from there up the road behind me over to the bull pens, and that's only the ones that they are going to use for the encierro the next morning. It's called the encierrillo. You can't go down there and watch it unless you have a ticket. Very hard to come by. There's only something like 140 of them available. The passes are given based on legacy, and then any that aren't claimed go into a lottery. However, you can come watch it partially, what you can see through the trees, right here at the top of the wall, which my friend Andy, Katie, and I did the other day, and it was a pretty cool experience, and hopefully I'll be able to get down there and watch it on the pass someday. So I'm currently standing at the Puerto Nuevo, or the New Gate. This was originally just a wall. In fact, where I'm standing now beneath me was the city wall, but in the 1500s it was ordered that a gate be created here to facilitate trade along this route. Now there's a major road that connects Ronda to here, and it goes up through the main thoroughfare kind of around the original walled city. But it's quite interesting when you can see how big this wall is, and that used to just be solid beneath my feet, but now it's a road. And then on this side you can see the wall of the city and some of the old style architecture that went into this place back when it was built.
Across the road are the Jardines de Taconera. These gardens form a large park which was built about 200 years ago. The park has many art installations, including modern and sculptures. As you can see with all the fencing, the city is still in recovery from the Fiesta de San Fermín. Outside of the fiesta, the park is a nice serene place to get away from the bustling city. It's usually full of locals and runners going out to enjoy the morning sun. Across the street from the park, on what used to be the city walls, is the Iglesia de San Lorenzo. While the church itself has its own history, it's most famous for being the home of the image of San Fermín, one of the co-patron saints of Navarre. This is the chapel of San Fermín, where his image remains outside of the fiesta. During the fiesta, there are several processions where his image is moved around the city. This chapel is also known for its tapestries, which adorn the upper walls. Two of my favorites are the one with the image of Saint Michael and this one with the coat of arms of the province of Navarre.
Behind me is the Iglesia de San Lorenzo, or the Church of St. Lawrence, and this is where San Fermín's relics and his image are maintained. Now, who was San Lorenzo? San Lorenzo, also known as St. Lawrence in English, was one of 7 deacons that was martyred in the Catholic Church when it was under Roman rule. San Fermín, also martyred in the Catholic Church when it was under Roman rule, although he was not martyred here in Pamplona. He was martyred in Spain by beheading. Why his relics are held here instead of the Pamplona Cathedral in the main part of town, I don't know. I could probably find that answer pretty easily. Interestingly, San Fermín is not the patron saint of Pamplona. He is one of the co-patron saints of the province of Navarre. The patron saint of Pamplona is San Saturnino, who was responsible for bringing Christianity to the city under Roman rule. Interestingly, San Saturnino was responsible for baptizing the entire Fermín family, which is how San Fermín got into Catholicism before eventually become the Bishop of Pamplona. Now, he wasn't beheaded or martyred here in Pamplona. He was on a pilgrimage or missionary trip into France, where he was martyred for preaching against the pagan gods there. However, because his family was from Pamplona, his relics are maintained here, and his feast day, celebrated usually on September 24th, is celebrated on July 7th. During the fiesta de San Fermín here in Pamplona. Why is this feast day celebrated on a different day here in Pamplona versus the rest of the Catholic Church? That just goes back to simple practicality. Back in the 1500s, his feast day was October 10th, but there was a Frankish livestock fair that occurred in July, and the people of Pamplona went to the then Bishop of Pamplona and asked for the fiesta to be moved so they could have all of the fiestas and the feast day celebrated all at the same time in July, which is now July 7th. Later on, the feast day for San Fermín was moved to September 24th, which it is still celebrated here in Pamplona on a much smaller scale with San Fermín Chiqui. It's the name of a local festival which I did have the privilege of coming to last year. Now, July 7th is the day after the opening ceremonies here in Pamplona. It is to the actual feast day. The opening ceremonies happen on July 6th. Unfortunately, for the tradition of the Fiesta de San Fermín, most of the tourists here do not care that the second day of festivities is a sort of holy day for Catholics and the feast day of San Fermín. They're just here to party. You can probably tell as I'm walking around the city that it's starting to get a little bit later in the day now. It's a little after 10. I started a little after 9, and it's, during the off season, it's not necessarily a quiet city because it's a pretty big city. It's just not crazy like it is during San Fermín. And in fact, it's still a popular hotspot for international tours because of the rich history, especially as it pertains to the province and former kingdom of Navarre. It's also the 3rd day waypoint on the Camino de Santiago, which is the first leg of my Wayfarer Expedition, which comes through the French Gate, which I'll show you here in a bit.
This is the Ayuntamiento, the City Hall of Pamplona. This town hall was built in 1951, but where it was built has been the home of the City Hall for 600 years. When one building fell into disrepair and needed demolition, they simply built a new one in its place. During the Fiesta de San Fermín, the City Hall serves as a location for the opening and closing ceremonies, as well as the official entry point for the running of the bulls. And overlooking the plaza in front of the Ayuntamiento is the tower from the Iglesia de San Saturnino, the patron saint of Pamplona. According to legend, the entire Fermín family, including San Fermín, was baptized right here using the fountain that still exists at the church. The first sanctuary when you enter is dedicated to Our Lady of the Camino, the primary patroness of the Camino de Santiago and travelers. There are many stories surrounding the origin of Our Lady of the Way, the most popular of which has her appearing to a shepherd outside of Leon. Of course, every city has her story, and Pamplona says that she appeared just outside of the city walls to guide travelers. There is no actual image of San Saturnino inside the church. Instead, the relief of the night is the symbol of his arrival in Pamplona. The other sanctuary, straight ahead as you enter the door, is dedicated to the Holy Christ. This sanctuary is a lot more typical of a Catholic church, with scenes from the Passion of the Christ lining the walls.
So I said there are co-patrons to Navarre, of which San Fermín is one. The other one is San Francisco Javier. Now this statue behind me, that's not him, that's San Francisco de Assisi. San Francisco Javier was born in the city of Javier here in the province of Navarre. Back then it was the Kingdom of Navarre, it wasn't a Spanish province yet. He's venerated in the Catholic Church as the patron saint of missionaries. He is actually not buried here in Spain. His main veneration in Spain is in Javier. However, in the world, his body and his relics are actually buried in India, in Goa, because he died in China from illness before he was able to complete his missionary work. And he is credited with bringing Christianity to large parts of the Asian subcontinent. And he is highly venerated over there. They bring out his relics once a year at a festival over there to prove, one, that he's still there, but also to celebrate his influence in the world there. This is the Plaza del Castillo, what would be considered in most cities as a Plaza Mayor or Plaza Constitución. The Plaza del Castillo serves as the centerpiece for ferias y fiestas here in Pamplona. Now, the main part of the opening and closing ceremonies for San Fermines take place upon the Ayuntamiento. The main ones for the San Fermín Chiqui take place in another spot. However, this place is where a lot of the party takes place. Here you can see behind me they're taking down the huge concert stage from the feria and the fiesta this week. And you can probably tell from the background noise and all the nice dirt work they're doing back here behind me that this place is in full-blown recovery mode from the Fiesta de San Fermín. And right over here is the Café Aruña, which is where Hemingway frequented when he was here and which features prominently in his book, The Sun Also Rises. So let's go check it out. This is the Café Aruña. This is the famous cafe from the book and the movie The Sun Also Rises. This was one of Hemingway's favorite cafes in Pamplona. It's one that he came to with his friends to enjoy his downtime during the fiesta, which admittedly he even says there wasn't much, about 3 hours of sleep a night. And one of my favorite traditions is after the encierro is I come here for a coffee, a juice, maybe some churros and chocolates with the friends that I have that I run the encierros with. And as you can see, it's very elegant inside, but it definitely doesn't look like that during the fiesta.
During the fiesta, the upper dining room is open to those with a ticket. It's a fun, sophisticated, albeit muted party compared to the outside. Of course, back in Hemingway's day, there were no tickets. He just showed up with his friends to eat and drink the fiesta away.
This is the Calle de Estafeta. During the Fiesta de San Fermín, this is the main drinking thoroughfare. And outside of the main Fiesta of San Fermín, it is still the drinking thoroughfare. I've been here in the off season and it's just as packed, but with locals instead of international tourists. And I've been able to walk down this road because it's blocked off by a band playing in a circle right in the middle of the street. You know, and it's not San Fermín then, but it's San Fermín.
The Estafeta is the road that leads to the bull ring during the encierro every morning during the fiesta. The same bulls that run in the encierro in the morning are used for the bullfight that night, right here in the Plaza de Toros. The Plaza de Toros de Pamplona is a large concrete structure a far cry from the neo-medieval Plaza de Toros in Madrid. It may not be the most beautiful bull ring, but it's still one of the most important.
The Plaza de Toros de Pamplona, as we know it today, was not originally where that building is right there. It was actually right where this little patch of grass and where I'm standing is right now. The original one eventually fell into complete and utter disrepair to the point where it became dangerous to hold any sort of events there. So in the 1910s, there was a private organization that basically, what we would call today, crowdfunded the new bull ring, which is why today it is still a privately held center. It is not held by a municipal, regional, or national government. They built it right over there, and it was opened in 1922. So for anyone who's familiar with Ernest Hemingway, his book The Sun Also Rises came out in 1926, I think it was. It's 26 or 29. So he watched those bullfights from that ring right there. Now, that top deck that you can see over the walls, that wasn't there in Hemingway's day. That was added later. However, when you can see in the videos, you have about a third of the way down the railing. That used to be a terrace, an open-air terrace, and that was there when Hemingway was there. And he, in his book, Death in the Afternoon, talks about drinking and eating and talking with friends on that terrace while watching the bullfights.
Unlike Madrid and Sevilla, which have bullfights and novilladas year-round, the only bull fair in Pamplona happens during the Fiesta de San Fermín. It's called the Feria del Toro, and the stands are packed every night with aficionados, locals, and partygoers alike. Of course, without Ernest Hemingway, the Feria del Toro and the Fiesta de San Fermín never would have reached the international notoriety they have today. For just €8 in the off-season, you can take an audio-guided tour through the Plaza de Toros, and I highly recommend you do. In the off-season, the bull ring is peaceful, and sometimes you can see novilleros practicing on the ruedo, but during the Feria del Toro, the crowd is loud, raucous, and demanding.
And this is the bullfight, but everybody's here. So just a fun little tidbit about Hemingway, old Hemmers, is he loved the Basques and he loved bullfighting, and he was really ecstatic for his book, The Sun Also Rises, to be turned into a movie in the 1950s. However, he hated the movie. Why did he hate the movie? Because most of the shots were actually from Mexico. They did come to Pamplona and film some real scenes at the Ayuntamiento and the Fiesta, but they didn't use this plaza, they didn't use the local Basques, they didn't use Spaniards, it was all Mexicans, and he hated that. He was very, very, very vocal about how, you know, the book, they have all these Basques and these wonderful Basques, and all you see in the movie are these damn Mexicans, and he really hated it. I just think that's pretty interesting, because I love the movie, it's pretty close with the book. But Hemingway, not a fan. Must be a thing from writers from his time, because Ian Fleming wasn't a fan of casting Sean Connery as the first James Bond, so maybe it's just the men of the time. So at the beginning of this video, I was at the Puerto Nuevo, the new gate, which is on the exact opposite side of the city from where I am now. I'm currently standing at the Baluarte de Labrit, or the bastion of Juan Labrit, the last sovereign king of Navarre. So in 1512, Juan Labrit fled Navarre through this bastion. That gate that I showed you earlier leads down some stairs to a door right down at the bottom of this wall. Why did he flee? Well, the Catholic monarchs, which were King Ferdinand and his wife, Queen Catherine, who were the monarchs of Castile and Aragon, widely considered to be the first true king and queen of Spain, even though they hadn't technically unified yet, were marching on Navarre, and the Kingdom of Navarre could no longer fight back. They had two of the major kingdoms on the peninsula marching on them. They were losing, and so the last sovereign king of Navarre fled through these gates out to France, where he continued the fight from the French Basque country known as Lower Navarre, because it's lower in altitude, even though it's on a map it looks upper. He continued to do that until he died just a few years later, And unfortunately at that point, I say unfortunately for Navarre at that point, and all of the Basque provinces, they fell to the Spanish conquest. Even though the Kingdom of Navarre continued as a semi-autonomous kingdom underneath the Spanish throne, it wasn't really independent anymore. It was Spanish, and that is something that the Basque and the Navarrese, the true Basque Navarrese, not the new Spanish Navarrese that came in after, still hold against the Spanish. They say this is, similar to here in the United States, stolen land. You know, this belongs to the Basques, and the truth is, it was conquered. Now, and that conquering also has cascading effects for modern politics, because down in Lower Navarre in France, they entered into diplomatic ties and unions of consent with the French governments. They're a lot more integrated than here in the former Basque region of Spain. And yes, Navarre is a Basque region of Spain. It doesn't matter what anyone in modern Spain tells you. The province of Navarre, formerly the Kingdom of Navarre, was not only a Basque kingdom, it was the original Basque kingdom, and it ruled from what is now the autonomous community of Basque Country, Navarre, and Lower Navarre up in France. And this door right here, right below me, is where that kingdom came to an end. In fact, just a few days ago, I was talking to a Spanish woman who is married to a Basque man, and one of the things that they want to know in my book that's coming up is, do I talk about the original Basque Kingdom in Navarre? And the answer is yes, I do, because it's so important. And they, having been from here, and her family is from here, even though she's Spanish and he's Basque, they understand the original history, and they were adamant, and I agreed with them. They were very happy that I agreed with them, that this is the original Basque Country, no matter what modern politics says. Now, what's the sticking point? Well, that has to do with Franco. Francisco Franco was a fascist dictator that ruled Spain from the time of the Spanish Civil War in the 1930s until his death in the 1970s and the establishment of the modern Spanish Constitution. Now, under Franco's regime, he wanted to institute a policy of one Spain, right? And he didn't mean, you know, one Spain as far as expanding Spain out into the adjacent territories like Hitler was doing at the time. Instead, he wanted to say, look, you may be Basque, you may be Galician, you may be Catalan, but you are Spanish first. And he, you know, some people, and I would be included in that, agree that that's a good policy to have. Your national identity should come before your regional identity. However, where Franco misstepped and where he really got a terrible reputation, a well-deserved terrible reputation, was through political repression. It wasn't just be Spanish first. It was don't be Basque, don't be Galician, don't be Catalan. It was actually illegal to practice Basque customs, Basque languages in Spain during his rule. Now, Spaniards, they omit that from the history books. A lot of them will say, oh, well, they say that, but really their language had fallen into disuse. That's not true. Sorry, it's just not. It's selective history rewriting. There are two generations of Basques that cannot speak Basque because of Franco's policy. There are grandmothers who speak nothing but Basque, mothers and sons that can't speak Basque at all, and now you have the next generation who is trying to learn Basque and institute their cultural heritage and language. However, here in Navarre, it is legal for the government to withhold funding from schools that only teach in Basque. If they don't teach in Spanish, the schools can be defunded. So there's a lot of controversy with that in the Kingdom of Navarre, because nowadays only about 10% of the Navarrese population is ethnically Basque, and they say that it is oppressive to them and discriminatory against them, which I can understand, but it's been 500 years since that event, and Spanish is the dominant language now. And I do find it ironic that the same Spanish people that decry the horrors of the Franco regime will also turn around and vote for policies and judges that will enforce the ban on Basque-only schools because you're Spanish first and Basque second. It's quite ironic that that's the course that they've taken.
These tiered walls are the bastions that once defended the city. They are located at each of the four corners and at the citadel, although some have been removed to make way for modern improvisations. Like so many other cities in Europe, like Santander and Vienna, Pamplona was a walled city designed as a fortress against invaders. Now the city walls provide scenic overlooks of the Pyrenees Mountains, and they're especially beautiful at sunset. This is the French Gate. This was once the gate that travelers and merchants entered upon their arrival at the city. Even today, pilgrims along the Camino de Santiago enter Pamplona through these very stones. The Iglesia de San Fermín Aldapa is allegedly built on the same place where San Fermín's palace once stood. In fact, San Fermín Chiqui, the small San Fermín festival on his feast day in September, is sometimes referred to as San Fermín de Aldapa in honor of his memory. Of course, what would a day in Spain be without a delicious lunch from the Menú del Día? It's a fast, inexpensive way for the restaurant to make money and for patrons to have a nice hearty meal. Today, I elected the pasta with bolognese, pollo asado, and cheesecake. Of course, I had to grab a caña as my drink. This full 3-course meal only cost me 20 euros.
I mean, seriously, can you imagine going anywhere in the United States, paying $22 and getting a starter, a main, a dessert, and a drink?
This is one of my favorite views in all of Pamplona, the walk to the main Pamplona Cathedral. Officially called the Metropolitan Cathedral of Santa Maria the Royal, it is the seat of the Archdiocese of Pamplona. While the current church was built in the 15th century, it has ruins going to the 1st century BC. Of course, as with most major cathedrals in Europe, it's been tinkered with over time, and the current facade dates back to the 17th century. While the cathedral is officially dedicated to Our Lady of the Assumption, whose feast day is celebrated on August 15th, it is more popularly associated with Santa Maria Real because of the kings and queens of Navarre that are buried there. This is the Retablo de San Fermín, created in the 1700s. It includes important Catholic figures such as San Miguel, Thomas Aquinas, and Santo Domingo. Of course, at its center is the man himself, San Fermín. To visit the church, its cloisters and museum, it only costs 5 euros, or 3 euros if you're doing the Camino de Santiago. It's worth every penny. These are the cloisters of the church, not open during the fiesta. Back here, there are more chapels, sanctuaries, and museum pieces, which showcase the cathedral's history. If you show up at 10:30, you can request a guided tour up to the bell tower. Unfortunately, I was too late to do that. While primarily a church, it has also served other functions, such as a bastion against the neighboring communities in Navarreria, which was the war between the neighborhoods before the unification of Pamplona, and where the Navarrese parliament used to meet, called the Cortes. Of course, not every space was open to the public, as it's still the current seat of the Archdiocese of Pamplona. These statues represent four important figures in the city's history: San Fermín, San Francisco Javier, San Saturnino, and Saint Peter, keeper of the keys of the kingdom.
Now, this was my first time visiting the cloisters in the cathedral. Let me tell you, it was well worth the €5 I paid to enter. I didn't get to record a lot of it because it's too dark for camera, but if you're ever in Pamplona, don't skip on spending the money. Spend it and go visit and spend time back there, because it's quite an amazing museum experience and tribute to both Pamplona, Navarrese, and Catholic past.
The Iglesia de San Nicolas de Bari was another one of the neighborhood churches. It served and defended the neighborhood of San Nicolas. If you look closely, you can still see some of the architecture on the watchtowers where they served as bastions. Inside the church is an image of Our Lady of the Pillar, primary patroness of the country of Spain. According to Catholic legend, the Virgin Mary, in the only instance of bifurcation on record, appeared to James while he was preaching in Spain. She encouraged him to continue his preaching despite his troubles, thus ensuring that Christianity remained on the Iberian Peninsula.
So this is the Church of San Nicolas de Bari. That is the St. Nicholas we all know as Santa Claus. And the reason he is named, or this church is named after him, is because of the history of Pamplona. Pamplona, as a unified city, didn't exist until after the medieval times. So before that, there was actually 3 adjacent communities that were in constant conflict with one another. This one, the community of San Nicolas de Bari, was protected by this church. And as you saw in the architecture, it's not just a church, it also served as a defensive tower against attacks from the adjoining communities. The main cathedral was another one of the churches involved in this neighborhood feud, as was the Church of San Saturnino. Before these communities unified, they were actually separated by walls, just showing how just much conflict could arise in these close proximities. And actually, they bombarded each other from the churches and their towers, which is ironic because eventually all these churches and towers would bind together to fight against the Spanish during their invasion and during the Carlist Wars, when the Basques took the side of the Carlists against the crown. So that's it for my tour of Pamplona. I hope you enjoyed it. There's a lot more to get to than what I described in this video. For example, the Pamplona Citadel, which is a beautiful park that was once a defensive structure. It's closed during my visit here because of the safety aspect related to the fireworks and the fiesta. There are several other churches to go to, the Museum of Navarre, and of course there's the San Fermín and San Fermín Cheeky festivals to visit around the San Fermín feast days. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, hit the subscribe button, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss a single thing coming to you from the adventure across the world. I'll see you guys on the road.